what would be your advice to founders that aspire to be on the unicorn path?
I started a bunch of small businesses in my early 20s where I tried a lot, failed a lot, learned a lot.
Everyone thinks everything's perfect. And it's like, oh, wow, you're so lucky. You built the unicorn.
Oh, God. I worked in a kind of bathroom/closet for a while. A lot of people have told me since that was like one of probably the greatest moves I ever made. Like, you can either be rich or king. And I was like, I want to be rich.
How much harder would it have been to recruit 300 people in 8 months if you weren't remote?
The thing that I learned that I hated the absolute most was...
So, JC, I'm super excited to have you on the show. Unicorn founder, no easy feat. And I would love for you to kind of kick this off by just telling me when you knew you made it with ZenBusiness and what that felt like.
That's a great start and / curveball. So, there's many reasons why I started ZenBusiness, but the main one was, maybe not the main one, but one of the big ones was I started a bunch of small businesses in my early 20s where I tried a lot, failed a lot, learned a lot. And the thing that I learned that I hated the absolute most was paperwork. No one's ever disagreed with me on this in any meeting I've ever had. No one's just been like, what are you talking about? I love paperwork. And so after that happened, I kind of set out to find a better way. And so I was, in America, broke college kid. I found LegalZoom existed. So I went to LegalZoom, tried them out, and because I was a broke college kid, I missed a payment. And so they sent me a letter in the mail threatening to sue me if I didn't pay my bill. Come to find out later on, that's like a marketing tactic they have for like retention and, churn, things like that. And so, fast forward, ZenBusiness, we're, just getting started and, getting customers in. And one day, one of our customers sent us a letter in the mail saying how we changed their lives and they never could have, started their business without us. And, they were putting food on the table for their kids now. And so that was like a kind of a full circle moment for me. And that's kind of when more than anything else, that's when I knew I was like, okay, we're doing something important here.
And what scale were you at when you got that letter?
Oh God, this is probably around we did it was called a seed preferred 2 before the Series A. And I think it was like right after that before the Series A.
All right. So this is fun to talk about. You just mentioned like seed preferred 2, like complicated kind of bridge round, maybe.
Just make it up. Just make it up. It's fine.
Yeah. But I'd be curious, like as far as your trajectory at ZenBusiness, like unicorn, everyone thinks everything's perfect. And it's like, oh, wow, you're so lucky. You built the unicorn. It's like, I don't know how much luck, played a factor. Maybe it did, but curious to kind of hear like your fundraising, story, especially when you kind of mentioned there's maybe a little bit of a bridge there, because a lot of founders go through that where maybe you didn't hit the Series A metrics after your seed right off the get-go. Kind of what was that like for you?
Yeah, it wasn't like considered a bridge. And, speaking of easy, right? 10 years to an overnight success, right?
Yeah.
No one sees the work in in my case, I worked in a old bathroom, kind of bathroom/closet for a while. So basically I was 27 at the time when I started ZenBusiness, founded in, 2015 originally. And then, I didn't know what I was doing. And so I kind of raised the initial like friends, family, angel round of like a couple $100,000. I think it was maybe 300-400. And then, kind of blew through all that. It was like 50,000 in debt on my credit cards and things were not going well. That's an understatement. Met Ross. Ross is our current co-founder and current CEO. Ross was the founding CTO of HomeAway. They were like a roll up that acquired 26 vacation rental websites worldwide, and then went public, and then went sold to Expedia for $3.9 billion. And so I recruited him to come in as CEO, and him and I were great team, still are. And so when he came in, basically he just came off this huge success, and then basically we just were able to like raise money really easily, and so then did this kind of seed preferred 2, which I guess is probably in some ways a bridge, but really it helped us like propel the business because we just needed to like raise a little bit of a round to like get things going. And it's funny because there's so many different names for all these things at the time, and still are. So
Wait, so this is a very interesting path that you have here. So you kind of glazed over the struggle, maybe the bathroom office, situation, and you somehow recruited this, rock star
Mhm.
that just came off a massive, transaction. How? How did you convince this? How'd you meet him? How'd you get access to him? And then
Yeah,
how did
great
you
question.
what did you use as leverage to get him to the table?
Leverage. I don't think I had any of that.
That's
Um,
what I'm curious about. How'd you get this guy?
yeah,
Come check
so
out my bathroom?
yeah, well, actually, was it his bathroom? Well, no, we worked in his garage at also too at some point. Which
Gotcha,
we
okay.
actually I do have like the Austin, Texas start a company in a garage story, which is cool. Uh, so I we got accepted into the Capital Factory Accelerator program, which is like biggest
Yep,
accelerator or most well known in probably Austin, Texas,
mhm,
which I'm a mentor and a LP now. And basically at the time they had this matching program. So you get accepted into the accelerator, and two of the partners of the accelerator both gave you like $25,000 a piece. Then the Capital Factory would match with 50 grand. And I think back in the day, if Capital Factory matched with the 50 grand, then Floodgate would match with like another 100, 200 grand. And at this time when I was going through all this struggle of like, we're trying to figure things out and we're, essentially as close to bootstrapping as possible and just, eating ramen. Actually, it was Soylent back in the day, but
yeah, I did Soylent too.
yeah, Soylent. Uh, and so I got $25,000 from one of the partners, and I was like just doing everything I possibly could to like meet as many of the other partners as at Capital Factories I could to just try and get $25,000 out of any of them because I was 50 grand in debt on my credit cards, and the math was like, okay, if I get $25,000, I get another $50,000, I can pay my credit cards off, I have another $25,000. I think the floodgate thing had kind of ended at that time, and so life is funny because timing is everything. And so we actually tried to get a meeting with Ross like two or three times, and he was like in his like honeymoon phase after uh, taking off from home away, and so he was traveling and doing a bunch of stuff, and so he canceled on us like, a bunch of times, and like all credit goes to Roth, my co-founder here, because he kept following up. And so we finally met him, and like we kind of hit it off immediately because obviously we're trying to make it easier for people to start businesses and like forming entities and doing compliance and registered agent and all like the gross boring stuff that nobody wants to do. And he had like seven entities at the time. He didn't know like where anything was going in, coming out, like completely completely understood the pain that we were trying to solve. And so he got interested, and then we kept meeting with him and meeting with him. I think we met him, five or six times over the course of like several weeks, and he kept digging in and learning more and getting more and more interested. And and then we kept getting, building more and more rapport and getting to know each other better. And so we were sitting at Austin Java one day, and this is like, close to like the event horizon of like when my credit cards are about to start getting, shut off. And so of course I'm like super desperate, but it's hard to and I was having to play like I'm not, but like I was terrified. I wasn't sleeping. And we were sitting there, and I was like, "Hey Ross, would love to like, have you in as an investor or an advisor." And he's got, great Nebraska accent, and he looks at me, he's like, "Shit, man." He's like, "Yeah, I'll give you 25 grand, but I want to be CEO." And I was like, "Yes, absolutely." I didn't even think about it. I didn't need to have like, "Oh, let me think about it." I was like, "Yes, you got it. You're CEO." And the rest is kind of history. I mean, a lot of people have told me since that was like, one of probably the greatest moves I ever made because a lot of founders wouldn't make that move, but it's like the old adage, like you can either be rich or king. And I was like, I want to be rich. And I really believed in what we were doing. And also I'm 28 years old, 27, whatever it was at the time. And I had this amazing opportunity to essentially get like a free MBA that I also got paid for. And I was like, this is a no brainer. I'm going to learn a ton, and we'll see where this project goes. And then it ultimately ended up becoming huge massive success. So that's kind of and so there was no leverage. It's just like he understood the problem. He was really interested in trying to solve it. He liked us and like thought we could do it together. And so a lot of people in his position could like manipulate us, have a lot of they have he had all the leverage over us in the world, right? And all credit goes to him because like he never once ever like abused that or like did anything subversive or nefarious. Like it was all support, all mentorship, all just like bringing us in. Don't get me wrong, like it wasn't a gift. Like he didn't give us a gift. Like we worked our asses off every day, all day at ZenBusiness. Like we showed up to work, but that could have gone a completely different way. And forever grateful that it went the way it did.
Yeah, this is such a fascinating story because this is not a common story that you hear in terms of like unicorn forego your own, forego your CEO title at the earliest stages when all your credit cards are about to burn out, and the pressure's on. But as far as hindsight, great move,
Right.
and a bold move to recognize that opportunity and to not hesitate. But also kudos to you for building that relationship and trust over an extended period of time. So at that point, now you have this heavy hitter as CEO.
Yep.
Now, was it you guys all doing the fundraise together and subsequent rounds, or was he leading the charge? Were you leading the charge? How did you guys kind of bring that to? Because usually pre Series A, new CEO, non founder raising money, it's kind of like a unusual story. But to that caliber of a person, maybe it wasn't an issue.
Yeah, I mean, it really, it really changed the dynamic a lot. So like, like all of us, me, Ralph, Ross, we all like were part of all the fundraisers kind of all the way through to the Series C I wasn't so much in, but the up to the B I was, pretty heavily involved in. Yeah, and so basically like, oh yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. So like, I used to go into angels and VCs and say, hey, we're gonna take down LegalZoom, right? Because I'm still mad about the letter.
Yeah, exactly. Good mission.
So pettiness wins championships as far as I'm concerned. And so I would go in and they would be like, okay, they would laugh and be like, yeah, like LegalZoom spends $70 million a year in marketing. Like, how are you going to beat them? I said, well, their product sucks. We're gonna, and I feel like they don't treat their customers right, and I think we can really like hit their soft underbelly and their high price. Like the price is crazy, and so I think there's a potential for disruption here. And they would like laugh me out of the room. Ha ha ha. Good luck. And then recruit Ross walks into the same room, same people, same story, and they're all like, "That's a great idea. We're gonna give you money." And then kind of then and then in the subsequent rounds, like, so that went really quick because Ross just had to make some phone calls, right, to his people that he knew. And not saying it was easy by any stretch of the imagination, but like that, after Ross came in and like we got everything kind of shored up, and then we had some breathing room to actually like go and execute and test and build products, which also that was another huge struggle for of about a year and a half. And then, once we kind of got things going and like really started having some good data around, customer and ICP. And so like basically where I landed at ZenBusiness is like I became the voice of the customer inside the company. That ultimately transitioned into me leading all of product marketing. So I was in charge of all of our quantitative, qualitative research to, validate, triangulate our hypotheses across like product, price, promotion, LTV, retention, churn, like all of those things. And so like I was like essentially like the subject matter expert that would come in during the fundraisers, and I would just walk them through all the data.
Very interesting. It's great to hear that kind of founder journey. Like you still built the company, it was your idea. You had the vision, and then you realized that bringing in the best talent was how you created the most value, uh,
Totally.
and going out and
Still.
recruiting that talent. What are some of your insights for founders, listening today in terms of attracting great talent?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be a magnet for resource gathering. And so like, and I didn't see this. I didn't really know this kind of like day one, of course. And then I saw Ross come in, and all of a sudden he's just on calls. He's talking to everybody. He's bringing everyone in. We're getting like moonlighters and like advisors, and then all of a sudden we just had this like magnetic orbit of like just talent around us. And of course, like you know, Ross just came off this huge win and had a big network. But the thing is you can still do that on a smaller scale just by being like curious, open minded, wanting to learn, not having an ego, and just like really like being open to like, accepting feedback. And of course that comes from like, angels and VCs a lot of times. But I mean, if you're trying to like pull talent into your orbit, like there's ways that you can go out and, as far as I'm concerned, you can get access to anyone in the world if you really want to, and there should be no barrier to that. Some people are like, oh, I can't ever talk to this person because they're so like three orders of magnitude away. I bet you can. You just have to be, persistent enough to just like try and find those people and just ask, one or two really good questions, and then that brings them in, and you start to build rapport. And next thing you know, they're like actually really wanting to help you out.
And I'm also curious, like, as much as that leads to the right person coming in, but how many shots, you or other founders have to take on goal to get even an opportunity to get that person on the door? Like, imagine it's not just one email, one cold email gets a job done in most cases. It's,
Yeah, I
some
mean,
kind
I think that I have. I mean, I think one of the things that obviously I'm not good at a lot of things. I think one of the things I was like blessed with is like I really love talking to people, and so I mean, but I also like, I mean, I don't really like the hustle porn thing, but like I was out there like going to every event I could, talking to everyone, like just asking for advice and like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. What do you think? I drove for Uber and Lyft during this time, and I literally every single person that got in the car for me is a potential customer because I think everyone in their soul wants to start a business because there's a human nature wanting for freedom, right? Which I think running your own business represents. And so everyone that got in the car, I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about starting this business. We're going to automate the process of forming LLCs and corporations and all this stuff. What do you think? And I got like 250 reps in or whatever, however many rides I did over that, 6 months or whatever it was. And then I was getting like intros to people that from Uber rides, right? And like that's just like one example. And then you're going out and you're going to networking events, and I think you just really have to create momentum, and the only way you can do that is through action.
to like force it and will it into existence. You can't just sit there and wait. And
No.
I do love the Uber story. I actually know a couple of founders that have a very similar journey where they drove Uber to not only cover rent, but also to get the reps in terms of just pitching strangers, because that's a great way to get challenge your resolve against the amount of rejection you might have in pitching someone cold in an Uber.
Totally.
um,
And also, I mean, another thing I did is so this guy Evan, I think it's Evan Kastner. There's two Evans in Austin that are awesome founders, and one or both of them wrote a book together, and it's called, oh, it's so good. There's like venture deals, as
mhm.
like from Brad Feld is like kind of the Bible, and then there's I think it's like it's they wrote a book, and it's around how you like basically like craft the deck, craft the story, craft the narrative, and actually take the money in a very like streamlined process way. It's great. He said that one of the best things that he ever did in early on in his career was he did improv. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I took improv classes, and I did some stand-up comedy, and like, man, I mean, you want to talk about like rejection from a VC, like go get on stage and tell some bad jokes. Like, I just would just bomb like all the time. And I could, I mean, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that built my like, scar tissue more than anything.
That is impressive. All these different little tactics that kind of help train your brain and prepare you for what inevitably becomes a massive outcome. So, I started this interview about kind of when you knew you struck it, like you were onto something, that you're picking up the momentum. But when you think about the scale that you guys reached,
Hmm.
how were you scaling? What were the channels that were working for you? Obviously, you had to create the momentum at the early days,
Right.
but Uber driving, driving Uber could only get you so far. It's like, when did you actually get the breakout velocity, and what was the secret sauce there?
Yeah. Well, so I think there's a kind of a good story before that about like the, doing whatever it takes kind of thing. So we set a goal, basically prior to like us deciding to compete head to head against LegalZoom, we built a lot of other products that nobody wanted. We built like an app called Zen Filing, which essentially was an app where any existing business owner, the 26 million existing business owners in America, could go download the app, put the name of their business in, and then check the compliance of their business. That did not work at all
It doesn't sound that
because
great.
no, it was terrible. But we thought it was a good idea at the time. I also had a white labeled like formation workflow for law firms, right? Because formation is a loss leader for law firms
Yeah.
to get startups, and so they'll do it for free, and then they kind of like put like delay the fees until like the next round or whatever. And so I was like, hey, like we'll just like sell you this software, we'll white label it to you, and it makes you look cool because like you have some tech to go out to these founders. Turns out selling to law firms is terrible.
Oh,
Maybe the worst sale of all time because everyone has to be unanimous, I think, across the partners. Uh, and so then we're like, okay, well, like none of this is working. Let's just compete head to head against LegalZoom. And so, in an afternoon in a garage in Austin, Texas, I built a landing page with a software called Lendingy that I got from Sumo. They had like a $49. Yeah, it's like $49 for Lendingy for like lifetime access, and I was like, great, bought it.
done a couple of those.
I built a landing page, and then I built a ad campaign in Google, and literally the landing page had like phone number, like name, email address, what type of company do you want to form, and then I had three radio buttons for like these other products we were thinking about. One was called Worry Free Guarantee, which, and then I just sent it live, and then all of a sudden it just worked, right? And I was like, oh, we're getting calls, and then basically we decided, hey, we're going to set a goal to grow 10% week over week for, or was it 20%? I think it was 20% week over week for 16 weeks, right? So for that 16 weeks of my life, I literally did not do anything but this. I had the call at night in bed. We get a call, and I'd answer it on my Apple Watch, like Dick Tracy. It was great, and so hit that goal. The last day, the last day of that 16 weeks, I had like two more customers to get, and I was just doing all this manually by like hand. I was every time someone would come in and give us their email address, I would email them, personally, hop on the phone with them, talk them through everything, and then just like take the credit card over the phone and put it in Stripe manually, right? And so this is a crazy story, and we'll get. I want to answer your question, but I want to give perspective of how we got there. I think it's important. The last day of like the 16 weeks, my dad was having heart surgery, not like a major heart surgery. He was having like a valve replaced, but I was in the hospital in like the waiting room, like the OR waiting room or whatever, and I literally like closed like the last deal or converted the last customer, and like I was just like it's like this monumental moment in my life. And I was like, man, we just hit that damn goal. And so from there, like that was kind of what allowed us to like go and like raise more money. And then, then we actually like started building product around it and automating and having like workflows and things like that. But like so we got lucky, and this was like a moment in time where basically LegalZoom just owned the Google landscape. Like no one could compete against LegalZoom, and so we're just like, okay, you know, $0. Like in the ad, it was like I noticed, like I looked through all LegalZoom's ad, none of them had pricing at all, right?
Yeah.
Because they had such a brand. So it's like, okay, we'll just put like $0, start for free, form an LLC. Like those just worked immediately, and it was just like, okay, upside surprise. And so, you know, from a channel perspective, like Google just worked out of the gate. It was like, the most predictable, most reliable. And what that did really was it got us enough traffic to then optimize the funnel, right? Because we had so much traffic coming in that we could then optimize the funnel over time, like page by page, just improve. So then when we can get our conversion rate up to a point where we could then go to like affiliates and say, hey, we want to partner with you. Here's our conversion rate. Here's how much we're going to pay you on a like, cost per acquisition basis. And then that, was obviously lower than our CAC in Google. And then that blended it down. And then we kind of went, paid affiliate for a while. And then our affiliate partners ended up being like, 50% of our traffic at one point. And so we got very reliant on them. And then we had to scramble to be like, oh, we need to do SEO like immediately as fast as we can, because we need to like mitigate the risk of if that partner were to like potentially pull out for whatever reason, because then we would have just lost 50% of our growth overnight. So
So, and so you mentioned Google, you mentioned affiliates. Did you also were you doing Facebook ads at the time too, or
we were. I mean, they never really worked that great. I think in today's world, like social and video is like way more important.
yeah,
But kind of in 2017, 2018, it was like not as important as it is today from like a brand awareness perspective and like, top of the funnel perspective. So yeah, we had that. It like, it would drive some conversions, but like, and nowhere near as meaningful as like paid and affiliate.
No, it's genius. It sounds like you found the channel, you doubled down on it, and basically came down to a killer offer, an
Yeah.
offer that sounded so much better than LegalZoom, which is
Well, yeah, because it was a killer offer because, and then where we really got the big unlock, where we got the big unlock was the way we started was it was $0 to start, just pay the state fees, right? And we created this kind of choose your own adventure funnel. It was great. So it was just like one product. It was like one page, one product, one page, one product, like kind of all the way through, and it was just literally binary yes no, right? And so they're like, do you want to form an LLC or Corp? LLC, right? Do you want expedited filing? Yes or no? Do you want EIN? Yes or no? And then what we would do is we would just drop new pages in for things that we didn't build just to test to see if people would buy them because they thought they were buying them, right? And then we would say, oops, my bad. Like, that's actually not ready yet. We're not charging you for it or whatever, which is great. And then over time, right, we started to add so many things to the funnel, right, that we were learning a lot about what people wanted, but like the people were getting funnel fatigue because the funnel was too long. And so then we're like, okay, how do we solve this? Well, I was like quickly realized, well, we've built enough products now based on like everything we've learned from the funnel. Like, let's just like put those in the packages, which is so obvious, right? But like, you know, at the time, like the offering was so good, right? $0 to start. And then, people would pick up a lot of things along the way. Like, only like I think like 27% of people would actually make it through and just form a company and only pay the state fees, right? But we still got them as a customer where we can like cross sell
yeah.
and upsell them later. And and then from there, this was like October, I think it was October 5th, 2018. That week we like launched packages, right? So we had like starter, pro, premium, and like they just included like different things, whatever. And then everyone knows how packages work. I don't have to explain that. But like you never really get like, and a new product launch I think is always like pretty difficult and mostly just like hand to hand combat. But this just worked. I mean, our LTV overnight went up 212%. It was like it was the biggest it was the biggest LTV shift in like company history because everything after that was just marginal improvement forever. But it's like overnight we went from like, making, I don't know, $50 a customer to like whatever 250 or something, whatever it was. And that was the moment that I was like, okay, now it's like we got some real opportunity to put fuel in the fire here.
You're likely having trouble raising money or selling your company. Personally, I've had 4 exits and I've raised over $145 million. If you want a free coaching session with me, just like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below letting me know what you think of today's video for a chance to win a free coaching session with me. I'll select 3 winners every single month. You just have to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below for a chance to win. Now, onto the video.
And this is a competitive market. There are countless solutions and all different, whether it's a full package solution like a LegalZoom or other competitors. There's a lot of Me Too's that came out after you guys came out.
Totally.
What is it like, kind of competing in that red ocean, and being able to stay on top of that?
Yeah, I mean it's a never ending never ending fist fight and just total like battle. So I mean, what's it like? Obviously, it's super difficult, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, the CACs are increasing, right? Because everyone's bidding on the same keywords. There, and then downstream of that, so then the LTV has to increase, and there's like pressure on both all the time, and then you also have to contend with the payback period. And the good news here is like we had such a better offer than anyone else, especially if people are doing like comparison shopping. Like we're just like the shining star, and then they're doing comparison shopping, and we're also the number one rated on all these affiliate sites, and they're seeing that, and so like we had a lot of social proof there. So I mean, I think like where we really just absolutely dominated was we just built like an absolute like marketing machine, like a go to market machine with like going back to talent, right? None of the other companies in the space at the time were venture backed, aka they're not giving people shares, aka they're not getting the best talent because the best talent in the tech world like wants, salary and equity. And so we were able to recruit the best people, and like that was a huge I mean, that was a huge advantage for us.
And so at this point, really competing on a superior marketing machine with a killer offer, and that's kind of how you stood out. And with the
Well, and
growth in
sorry, and so I don't want to discredit I don't want to discredit like customer success. So like we like absolutely were like so obsessed with customer success. Like I mean, if you look at our reviews on Trustpilot, I think we have like a 4.8 or 4.9
yeah,
and like 22,000 reviews right now. And so I mean, we're talking like we were doing everything possible to give customers the best experience. So like, you know, like at the beginning it was like a little bit of me, like I was on chat and intercom, like I did kind of everything, of course, at all stages, but like we were bending over backwards to do anything we could to make people happy and like surprise and delight them, and we still do that to this day. And so like our chief customer officer Mitch, still to this day, if we get like a bad review, he's calling the person personally and he's like taking care of the problem for him. And so like, you know, if you compared, you know, and I'm so glad we did that because it forced acts as a force function for all of our competitors to also give better service. Because like, you know, prior to us, you know, LegalZooms wasn't great. Like, let's be
it's
honest,
terrible.
right? Yeah, exactly. And so we like, you know, so that was like the huge that I mean, I would say like, yeah, the offering was great, but like customer success and being laser focused on and you know NPS and reviews was a big differentiator for us.
I could say as a former customer of LegalZoom many years ago, my first business back in like 2008, 2009,
Right.
to then using you guys for my real estate business for creating a couple LLCs, I can say it's like, yeah, it was like a night and day difference across the board. And it's awesome to have you on the show, having been a customer of your product for several years now.
Totally. Thank you.
So there's all like in most startups, and be curious to hear how yours went. Like you had these really tough points in the early days, and then you
Mhm.
start picking up velocity, improving product, figuring out the sales channel. Were there any other like breaking points? Whether are you running out of money, got to raise another round, or did you have money being thrown at you? Like what were some other kind of like at the later stage, call it post Series A, post Series B, that were like near death experiences or complex situations that you guys had to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so bad at like remembering like timing and dates of when things happened because like all I cared about was like the conversion rate on the website, like LTV and like, you know, retention, aka, you know, customer success. So I was just so focused on that. I really didn't care about anything else. But I mean, I'm pretty sure that we closed our Series A like right at the end of 2019. And so I mean,
Good
we know we're
timing.
all going here, COVID, you know. So COVID happens. We had this amazing like office, 30 people, around 30 people in Austin, Texas. It's a historical building. It's in a rock quarry. We have like this amazing like beautiful birds and trees outside, and it was the best time of my life. You know, the entire thing was like graffiti from our designers. Like that was
Nice.
like the startup
Love
vibe that
those
like
spaces.
everyone
Yeah.
wanted, right? It was the best, and I miss it. And so, you know, March. So what was cool is our one of our I think Graycroft, like who led the Series A when like the COVID thing started becoming a thing. They got like the one of the people from like the CDC on the phone with all their portfolio companies, which is like that was a cool value add.
That's a value add. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the person was like, "Yeah, 2 weeks to stop the spread. That's bullshit. Like, this is going to be a long time." And they like called it, and they're like, you need to take proactive measures like immediately." And so I think the entire world shut down like around the 13th or 14th of
Yeah.
March, and we went fully remote March 6th. Never went back to the office, right? And so as soon as all that happened, like everything died. Like all of our traffic, all of our conversions, no one's forming businesses. And it was the worst. Like we were basically like, okay, we're gonna have to, you know, shut the business down. Like, we were in a very contractionary period at that point in time where like none of us knew what the hell was gonna happen. And so we were just struggling. Like no one, you know, no one knew what to do. We couldn't increase conversions. Like it's just not, you know, if people aren't forming businesses out of like, you know, fear and uncertainty, then like we have no control of that. And then, and then, people are sitting at home,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden they start getting these things called stimulus checks. And then Basically for the next 16 weeks straight, we had like the most insanely explosive growth you could ever imagine. Every day, like literally every day was more conversions than the day before, and every day was the most conversions we ever had. Every week was better than the last, and it was just explosive. And so cool, that's awesome. But now we're having to like blitz scale to like take and all of a sudden everyone's like at home working remote. We're having to figure out how to work remote as a team that used to work in person at the same time that we're having to blitz scale. And so we went from like 30 people like March 6th of 2020 to like 300 in like 8 months or something. Like we like
Wow.
yeah, we like had to 10x our team because of the growth was so crazy. I remember Chris, our like head of IT. I mean, I feel so bad for the guy. I don't think he slept for that whole time. We would have like, he would be in calls with us for whatever reason. And behind him would be, I'm not even joking you, just a wall of MacBooks. And he's like, and all he was doing just shipping MacBooks. Like that was like, he's like, open the box, provision the MacBook, put it back in the box, ship it. Like, and he was just did that like
Wow.
all day, every day. And so, obviously like this is like an amazing thing happening on one side and like a crazy terrible thing happening on the other. And so the bipolarity of that and having to contend with that was like, I mean, it was really exciting on one hand, but it was like crazy on the other because that, well, like when that happened, I didn't I mean, I didn't like leave my house or do anything but work for like 4 months straight. And then I like just totally burned myself out. I remember like one day it was like Friday afternoon. I think I just like went immediately, like my desk was like next to the couch because I had a small 1 bedroom in Austin at the time. And I just like crashed on the couch. And I don't think I got off the couch until like Sunday afternoon, Monday morning. So that was rough for sure. And then kind of, good news is like because that happened, you know, we basically were able to capture a lot of the market share and then keep it. And so in addition, it's like now we're able to recruit, going back to the talent piece, now we're able to recruit like the best talent from everywhere in the country because we only had people in Austin, Texas. And so then I was like,
Yeah.
oh wow, this is like, hey, this is like, there's a lot of negatives to the work from home thing, but like this is a good positive because like best talent comes from anywhere, in my opinion. And so now we're getting like amazing people from like East and West Coast, like, from state to state. And then
Yeah. How much harder would it have been to recruit 300 people in 8 months if you weren't remote?
I don't know how we would have
And
done
just
it.
the real estate logistics of getting space.
Yeah, exactly.
The fact that you went remote was a blessing.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, in retrospect, I mean, almost as like if COVID didn't happen, we would have been on this like probably like slow grow trajectory. Like I think everything would have turned out the same ultimately, but obviously there's a lot of bad things happened during COVID, and a lot of like companies got really, really hurt during COVID, and some like got lucky, and we were just one of the ones that got really lucky.
well, in all fairness, you were prepared to be lucky.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You made that investment into SEO.
yeah.
Like that was probably massive for you guys, and you had the marketing engines already dialed in. You had all that hard work.
Hmm.
So when the volume came,
Yeah.
you were there and you were the leader.
Hmm.
So
That's
not
exactly.
luck. It was, I know it's
Yeah.
always weird saying COVID was lucky.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not saying that. I'm just, yeah, definitely not saying that.
So you have this massive explosive growth. You go from like basically maxing out your credit cards to, now this massive trajectory of growth over several years.
Mhm.
And but you're no longer at Zen Business.
Right.
So, walk us through kind of the journey of you making the decision to step down from your role at Zen Business and kind of what led you to do that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have nothing but the best things about my time at ZenBusiness, and like just forever grateful for my time there and the people that I met and the lives we got to touch. Because like ultimately we ended up having 6 co-founders, and so Ross was running Ross was running as CEO. Shanaz is their COO. They've been working together for like 25 years, and like have ultimate trust with each other. And so basically, as we were recruiting, like, I was just one man, like, kind of one man show, head of product marketing this entire time. And then we really were like, we need to dial this up. So then we went and recruited like amazing, like senior level talent, right? This is like, this is like we were at a new stage, right? We needed someone to like, go from kind of like we went from like the 0 to 1 and the 1 to 10, but we needed like the 10 to 100 person, right?
Yeah.
And like I'm not that person, right? I'm not that person as like a non CEO. Like as a CEO, I'm pretty sure I can do that. But like if I'm having to like execute like an entire team and do the cross functional building of support and stuff, like I just don't have the patience for that. I'm sorry. And so we just like went and recruited like the best people, and then I was able to give away my day to day duty. Ralph was able to give away his day to day duty as head of product, and so we went and raised the $200 million Series C at the end of 2021 from Oak and SoftBank and others. And with that money, a big portion of it was carved out for global acquisition. And so, Ralph and I jumped at the chance. I mean, basically, like, like Ross and Shanaz are running the day to day of Zen. And you can have, Ralph and I, who are also founders, the original founders, go and like meet with all these other founders of similar companies to try and like, buy these businesses. Right. And so basically we isolated a target list of around 30 ZenBusiness clones around the world, every continent except for Antarctica. And then Ralph and I flew around the world, met with all of them. We got 200 LOI to acquire. And as we were going through the process of, buying these businesses, and these aren't small businesses, right? As we went through the process to buy these businesses, 2022, Fed raises interest rates, bottom falls out of the market, everyone pulls back to conserve cash. And, the macro had changed. And so we made the decision, like all of us, like, hey, let's kill the global acquisition strategy, no longer a strategic priority for the business. We don't want to divert, X amount of dollars, all the resources, attention, priorities of the business, trying to enter these new markets when like we just need to focus on our home market and we never need to raise cash again. So we made the tough decision to kill the global acquisition strategy. Bad news is I wasn't going to get to do it at Zen, but I was already fully vested. Did some secondary, and so I was in a good place. The company was in a good place, still growing, and so decided, hey, I've been there 7, 8 years, and ready to take some time off.
So how does that feel?
It didn't last long. I get bored pretty easily.
As most of us founders do.
Yeah, yeah.
You take a break and you're like, what? You start twitching and got to do something
I
again.
know. I mean, I plan to take a year off. Wanted to get caught up on all my doctors and dentist appointments I missed over the last 7 years. And after about 3 weeks, I was bored as hell. Sitting on the sidelines. But I mean, I still kind of forced myself to take some more time off. Made it 6 months until I couldn't take it anymore, and I just felt like I just a total loser again, and decided start looking for new opportunities.
Kind of what brings you to London? You're out here with me here in London. That's how we got
Yeah,
connected.
I love
Uh,
London. By the way, if anyone watching hasn't been here, I highly recommend it. Come see me and Jason. We'll take you out. Yeah, so obviously, going harkening back to the kind of the story of the global acquisition, right? And so like we were looking at companies all over the world, and I think there's a huge opportunity, with respect to Europe, to figure out a new way to help small business owners. You know, working on something, and really excited about the what's ahead. And so yeah, but then of course like that kind of brought me to Europe, and wanted a different life experience, and nice cultural experience. I love history, and so it's been great living here, and I think there's a big opportunity. It's all
no,
good.
I'm excited to have you here in London,
Thanks.
and excited for you to share a little teaser into what you're up to.
Coming
Um,
soon.
yeah, but before we wrap, uh, as a unicorn founder,
Yeah.
sharing a message with other founders out there, what do you think it takes, or what would be your advice to founders that aspire to be on the unicorn path?
A few things. Just show up. Just show up. Like the hardest thing to do is just show up to work every day. Just show up. Like that's one. Uh, and then one story I always tell is like kind of I guess if I was gonna, tattoo, if I was gonna get this as a tattoo, um, growing up, I went to like Catholic elementary school, and went through first through eighth grade. The time was like 6 to 14, and there was a sign in the hallway, and I walked past it every day for 8 years. Just burned into my brain. And I'd look at it, and I would just read it. And my last day of eighth grade, before I graduated, I went and I ripped the sign off the wall, and I stole it and I put it in my bedroom. I wish I still had it. And what it said was, persistence prevails when all else fails.
Good one.
And then, so that's my advice.
That would be a general theme I picked up on this podcast with you
Ah,
is
yeah.
persistence. Chasing down Ross and various other partners, and the maniacal focus on LTV and CAC.
Mhm.
That's what it takes.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. I mean, you have to be. I don't know if I'm like, I ruminate a lot. So like, I just like when I just I'm really good at only thinking about one thing and like just obsessing over it. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but like I just get obsessed. So yeah, it kind of takes
it's
that
a
level of obsession out of
it's a binary thing. When you put it into the right, if you're obsessed with the right thing, it's very powerful. Other
it. Yeah,
things get maybe left behind in life for a while,
right.
but that's how true massive value creation can be created, is when
Mhm.
someone has that level of relentless commitment to something.
Right. And you really like, I mean, you really have to love what you do and be passionate about it. Like, I mean, some people maybe are good at like, making money for money's sake. For me, that's not how, I mean, I want to have a big impact, or I want to, help people and make their lives better. And so I think you really do have to love what you do. And that's what gets you through the hard times.
Well said. Well, JC, if anyone here wants to connect or reach out, what would be the best way for them to get in contact with you?
I don't really do social media, so that's tough. But I mean, I would say like LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn. Just JC Glancy. Like you can see right here. Happy to connect. It's the photo of me. I have a beard. It's pretty, and I'm also don't have hair, so should be pretty easy to find. And then shoot me a message on LinkedIn. Happy to connect, and more than happy to spend time with folks who have questions.
Awesome. JC, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you for watching today's episode. As a reminder, I'm your host, Jason Kirby. I have built and sold multiple companies with over 135 million in transactions as either a founder, operator, investor across multiple industries. I'm currently the managing director and founder of Thunder.vc, where we help companies and founders at all stages navigate what capital to raise and who to raise it from, and help improve companies' odds of raising capital. If you need help, reach out to us at help.thunder.vc. If you like today's show, please share with your friends, give us a like or a comment down below. And as a reminder, this show is published weekly. And to get notified of new episodes and our newsletter, be sure to go to our website at join.thunder.vc. And if you sign up today, I'll send you a few freebies on how to negotiate a term sheet, how to get a free list of relevant VCs, and much more. That's it. No more shameless plugs. Thank you, and see you next week.